The producer who built Midsomer Murders for 14 years destroyed it in a single interview, and the show went on to become bigger than ever. These are 10 more dark secrets behind Britain's most murderous village. Fact 1. The first episode broke records.
Welcome, one and all, to the Midsummer Abbess May Fair.
Before Midsomer Murders became a fixture of British Sunday evenings, it had to prove itself. And it did so immediately. The very first episode, The Killings at Badger's Drift, broadcast on March 23rd, 1997, was the highest-rated single drama programme of the entire year. 13.5 million people watched. That is a number that feels almost impossible by modern standards when audiences are fragmented across streaming services. In 1997, it stopped the nation. Nobody inside ITV had quite anticipated that response. The show had strong source material from Caroline Graham's novels and a credible lead in John Nettles. But 13 million viewers on the first outing was beyond any reasonable expectation. That opening night created a pressure that shaped everything that followed. The show had announced itself at the very top of the ratings. Maintaining anything close to that position would require a consistency of quality that most long-running dramas fail to sustain. Midsomer largely managed it. The first episode remains the benchmark against which everything else has always been measured, a record set on night one that the show spent the next 3 decades living up to.
Morning, Tom. Haven't seen you in a while. We only meet when there's a corpse.
How'd she die?
That's easy, broken neck.
Fact 2. The theremin has a dark history.
Are you Emily?
I wouldn't call it sneaking, Lucy. Anyway, who's talking?
The haunting, wavering instrument at the heart of Midsummer's theme is a theremin, one of the strangest sounds in television history. Most viewers have no idea what they are hearing, only that it feels deeply, instinctively wrong in the best possible way. The theremin was invented by Russian scientist Leon Theremin in 1920. It is the only instrument played without physical contact. The performer moves their hands near 2 antennas and the electronic circuits respond. Nothing is touched. The music simply appears. The theremin part was played by specialist Celia Sheen until her death in 2011. From Series 14 onwards, the closing titles replaced it with a solo violin. A change that many longtime fans noticed and mourned, even if they couldn't explain why. The instrument has a broader history that fits Midsomer perfectly. It featured in Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound and in 1950s science fiction films, where its unearthly sound became shorthand for the uncanny. Choosing it for a murder show set in an apparently idyllic English village was a perfect piece of tonal design. The theremin tells you, before a single murder is committed, that the world you are watching is not quite what it seems. Nothing in Midsomer County ever is. And that sound has been warning you from the very beginning.
You've got it all wrong, Chief Inspector. All wrong.
Fact 3. Nettles filmed a secret ending.
And he passed his medical too.
When John Nettles left after 14 years and 81 episodes, his final episode showed Tom Barnaby announcing his retirement at a birthday party.
Joyce and I were going on a long holiday, but that holiday will be indefinite.
A gentle, affecting conclusion to a remarkable run, but that ending only exists for British viewers. Because the show is sold to 220 countries, the production filmed a completely separate version for international audiences. One in which Barnaby does not retire. The reasoning was practical. Foreign broadcasters showing repeats out of transmission order would encounter the retirement episode before seeing the full run. So internationally, Barnaby simply goes on forever, still solving murders, never handing in his badge. As Nettles himself remarked, he will go on forever for fans in those countries who will never see him leave. The character exists in 2 states simultaneously, depending on where you live. It is one of the stranger consequences of global television distribution. The character Nettles played for 14 years has 2 endings. Barnaby's retirement is, depending on your country, either a fact or a fiction.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, that, Detective Sergeant, means that I am not coming back. I am retiring.
Fact 4. The producer destroyed the show.
Phones are quiet.
After 5, sir. Villains are having their tea now. Get back to work later.
In March 2011, at the precise moment when Midsomer Murders was transitioning to a new lead actor and attempting to refresh itself for a new era, its long-standing producer destroyed 14 years of goodwill in a single interview. Brian True May, who had co-created the show and produced it since its inception, told Radio Times that the program did not feature ethnic minority characters because it was the last bastion of Englishness and I want to keep it that way. When asked whether Englishness should include people of other ethnicities, he replied, "Well, it should do, and maybe I'm not politically correct." ITV described itself as shocked and appalled. All Three Media, the production company, suspended True May immediately pending investigation. The comments generated international headlines and exposed the show to a level of scrutiny it had never previously faced. True May stepped down at the end of the current production run. His replacement, Joe Wright, was explicit from the start about her intention to cast diversely. From Series 15 onward, Asian characters appeared in central roles for the first time. From Series 18, the show had an Asian member of the main cast in pathologist Cam Carrymore. The irony is that the comments were made in the same week the new series launched. Midsomer Murders averaged 5.9 million viewers that week. Partly, some suggested, because of the controversy rather than despite it. The producer who tried to define the show's identity ended up fundamentally changing it.
Anderson, Miss Malfrey saw you leave Alan's house at 10 past midnight.
We had a drink, a chat.
Fact 5. Neil Dudgeon had been there before.
I'm Detective Chief Inspector Barnaby. Your granddaughter has been murdered.
When Neil Dudgeon was cast as DCI John Barnaby in 2011, many viewers assumed it was his first appearance in Midsomer. It was not. He had appeared in the show years earlier as a completely different character. In Series 4, Dudgeon played Daniel Bolt, a gardener with what the production dryly described as a tongue-in-cheek interest in matters of a sexual nature, a minor guest role, the kind Midsomer regularly filled with recognisable British faces. This creates a continuity problem the show has simply chosen to ignore. The same actor who played a minor suspect is now the detective investigating murders. Nobody in Midsomer County appears to notice. Dudgeon is far from alone in this. The show has always operated a repertory system, cycling familiar faces through different roles across different series. Some actors have appeared 3 or 4 times as entirely different characters. The committed fans spot these repetitions and discuss them online with considerable enthusiasm. The casual viewer simply enjoys the show without ever realising the detective might have played a suspect 15 series earlier.
I've actually told her she was a slag. Well, we can't always be sensitive, caring and diplomatic. Sometimes we're just wooden tops.
Fact 6. Orlando Bloom was killed early.
Jack? What?
Midsomer Murders has functioned across its long run as an accidental archive of pre-fame British acting talent. The 25th anniversary documentary in 2022 specifically highlighted early appearances by actors who went on to become significant names. And the most striking example is Orlando Bloom. Bloom appeared in the show before his career-defining role as Legolas in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, in the kind of minor guest part that the show routinely offered to young actors building their CVs. He was, naturally, killed. Henry Cavill, later Superman in the DC film series, also appeared in the show before his international breakthrough. The pattern has repeated itself so many times across the show's run that Midsomer has acquired a semi-official reputation as a reliable predictor of future stardom. This is partly a function of the show's longevity. Run for nearly 3 decades and you will inevitably cast people who go on to significant careers. But it is also a reflection of the production's consistent use of strong guest actors at every budget level. The show's casting directors have never treated the guest roles as filler. Every victim, every suspect, every minor village eccentric has been cast with care. The result is a show in which even the person murdered in the opening minutes is often played by someone who deserves much more than 5 minutes of screen time.
Dirty old git. You always sneak around these woods. This is what you get off on. It don't bother me, boy.
Fact 7. The villages are assembled from pieces.
Hey, darling.
Hi.
Been anywhere interesting?
No, just into Causton.
The apparently coherent villages of Midsomer County are, in almost every case, fictions stitched together from multiple real locations filmed on different days. A single fictional village might draw its pub from one Buckinghamshire hamlet, its church from Oxfordshire, and its high street from a third location entirely. The Six Bells in Warborough has appeared repeatedly as the Black Swan in Badger's Drift. The Bull and Butcher in Turville has been renamed for multiple episodes across different series. The same buildings wear different signs depending on which fictional village they are standing in that week. Real villages have adapted to this fragmented identity with remarkable tolerance. The Buckinghamshire Tourism Authority launched 3 dedicated midsummer location tours in 2021, marketing real. Geography against a fictional map that exists nowhere. Scenes set in the same village are filmed across multiple days in multiple locations. Maintaining spatial consistency is largely the editor's problem rather than the production's, and the editor manages it seamlessly. The Midsomer that viewers have built in their minds is a completely convincing illusion. Every village is simultaneously real and invented. The show has been creating a fiction of place for nearly 30 years, and almost nobody has noticed.
Afternoon, Miss Simpson. Hello, Anna.
Fact 8. The murders became increasingly absurd.
What are you playing at? Because I'm not in the mood for games. Not today.
In the early series of Midsomer Murders, the methods of killing were broadly conventional. Strangulation, poisoning, blunt trauma. Grim, but plausible. As the show aged, something changed. The writers began to compete with each other for increasingly improbable murder weapons, and the production leaned into it. Across its run, Midsomer Murders has featured death by poisonous frogs, spontaneous combustion, a wheel of cheese, King Neptune's trident, a doped horse, a vintage combine harvester, a giant crossbow, and a malfunctioning sauna. These are documented murders from actual broadcast episodes. The escalation was deliberate and self-aware. The show understood that its audience was not watching for procedural realism. They were watching for the specific pleasure of seeing what the writers had come up with this time. Murder as a kind of dark sport, with the ingenuity of the method as part of the entertainment. Radio Times captured this self-awareness precisely when covering the episode Death and the Divas, noting that Midsomer Murders never takes itself too seriously, but here it's got its tongue so far into its cheek, it hurts. The show's relationship with its own absurdity has always been part of its charm. The Wheel of Cheese is perhaps the purest expression of what Midsomer Murders became. Someone sat in a writer's room, looked at a blank page, and decided that a wheel of cheese was the appropriate instrument of murder. And they were right. That is the show in a single image. Fact 9. It is sold to 220 countries.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, one and all, to the Midsomer Abbess May Fair.
Midsomer Murders is one of the most widely distributed British television programmes ever made. At its peak, it was broadcast in 231 countries, virtually every television market on Earth, including territories where English-language programming rarely travels. The show's international success has always puzzled people who consider it quintessentially English. It is set in a fictional county embodying a vision of rural England that barely existed even when the show began, and yet it found audiences across Scandinavia, Japan, Australia, and Europe with remarkable consistency. Neil Dudgeon described filming being interrupted by international fan groups who had tracked down locations through their own research. Fans from Sweden, The Netherlands and Germany arrived on set wearing t-shirts printed with the actors' faces. The show was among the 3 most sold British TV programmes worldwide in 2004. That commercial reach has funded its survival through periods when domestic ratings alone would not have justified continued production. The version of England that Midsomer presents, idyllic, eccentric, obsessively violent in the most genteel possible way, is apparently the version the world wants to watch. The show has been selling that fantasy to 220 countries for nearly 30 years.
Celebrates the coming of summer and the very special relationship between Midsomer Abbess and Midsomer Her.
Fact 10. Nettles left on his own terms.
How long had he been in there when we found him?
Not that long. That's what I don't get.
To echo the ghost story, I suspect. A body left freezing.
John Nettles' departure was managed with the kind of unhurried dignity the show itself always embodied. He announced in February 2009 that he would make 2 further series and then leave, giving the production 2 years to plan his exit and viewers 2 years to prepare. His stated reason was simple and exactly right. "It's always wise to leave people wanting more," he said, rather than be booed off the stage because you bored them. After 81 episodes and 14 years, he felt he had taken the character as far as he could. Producer Brian Trume presented Nettles and co-star Jane Wymark with a specially made clapperboard on the final day of shooting. There were, by Nettles' own account, quite a few tears. Nettles has since retired from acting entirely. When asked about a return, he cut through the standard semi-retired actor's evasion. Old actors tend to describe themselves as semi-retired. What that means is, no one is offering you any work. I've cut through that. I'm retired. Tom Barnaby's cousin, John, has been solving murders in Midsomer since 2011. And in 220 countries, Tom Barnaby himself never retired. Still out there investigating endlessly in a county where the murders never stop and the detective never ages.